move stuff around a little bit. And the good stuff, there we go. So good morning, everybody. My name's Mike Devlin. Some of you I've met before, some not. How many of you have never seen me before? You don't watch Cops, apparently, very often. Just kidding. So today today is the kickoff of our launch program, and today is about setting goals and creating a plan and implementing a plan and going through what it is that makes somebody successful in real estate. I've been in the real estate business a little while. I believe my DRE number was issued before Orhan's. That's how old, right? That's how long. And so a common question that I get asked by people is, will I be successful in real estate? What do I need to be, what do I need to do to be successful in real estate? What does it take to be successful in real estate? And I'm going to answer that question today. Doesn't that sound awesome? Right, sounds awesome. Now there are some truths to the real estate business. And one is that most people that get into the business fail, right? Most of the people that begin a real estate career do not continue. According to the union, the Association of Realtors, about 75% of the people who join the union, the association, have stopped paying dues in 18 months. 75% of the people, in 18 months, they're not paying dues anymore. Only a small percentage of people, less than a third, depending on when you're looking, of the people who get a real estate license renew it at the end of 4 years. So what's going on here? Early retirement? Is that what's happening? They made so much money, right? The first year or two, they didn't have to work anymore. That could be, I guess, what's going on. Or they weren't making enough money to justify paying the dues, right? Do you understand? Just to be in the MLS. They're not making any money, right? Which is sort of not a good agent, right? You know what I'm saying? You might be a good person, but not a good agent. Why do people fail? Right? Because when you got your license, those of you that are relatively new, you were, optimistic. Isn't that right? You were going to go get them, And it's one of the reasons is that a lot of people don't know what they're getting themselves into. So let me ask you this question. If you were to use a couple of words or phrases to describe the business you're in or what you're doing now with your real estate license, what would be some of those things you would say? I'll give you a start: real estate, right? You understand? You might say you're in real estate. What would be other things we would use to describe what we're doing besides real estate? This is the audience participation part, if you were wondering when that was going to occur. Yes?
Selling our knowledge and skills.
Selling knowledge and skills. That's actually a pretty good answer. Selling yourself. Any others?
Deals.
What?
We syndicate deals.
Syndicate deals. To syndicates. Well, it's
get referrals.
Get referrals.
Make sure that you're in a group like people like you.
Right.
That's how you make your money from being an agent.
Right, being friendly to people. There, smile at the customers. Isn't that? I learned that once in retail. So what I liked about some of the answers, all of those were great answers, by the way. But the business that we're in addition to other businesses, is we're in sales. All right, I know that there are people who get their real estate license who, if I asked them, maybe I'd ask you guys, if you weren't selling real estate, what would you sell instead? And for some people, the answer is, I wouldn't sell instead. And for some people, the answer is, what do you mean selling real estate? Right? What do you mean? Right? So, hi, how you doing? So, first of all, you have to understand that we're in sales. And then you have to understand what it is that we're selling. And somebody had a good explanation. Does everybody understand we don't sell houses? Right? Does everybody get that? We don't sell houses. All right? Sellers sell houses and buyers buy houses. So what we're selling is a package of services that buyers and sellers could use. So one of the questions is, how good is your package? You know, how effective would you be at explaining to somebody why they ought to want your package of services? I'm talking about the unconscious income. Many people think it's easy, right? You get your license, you hang it on the wall, people come by, they drop off money. Isn't that how it works, right? Something like that. And then there's the 80-20 rule, right? How many of you have ever heard of the 80-20 rule before? A few people have. It comes from an Italian economist named Pareto. And what he had noticed was 20% of the people in Italy had 80% of the wealth. He also had a garden, and being an economist, he took notes, and he noticed that 20% of his pea pods produced 80% of his peas. And so he started looking for the ratio, the 80-20 ratio, and found it just about everywhere. Now, 20%, if we made a list of everything a real estate agent could do, should do, ought to do, everything a real estate agent ought to learn, could learn, should learn, 20% of the stuff that's on that list is going to correlate to 80% of your income. And 80% of the things that are on your list are going to produce 20% of the income. Does everybody understand that? There's a difference between being busy and being productive. Right, and this to some people this is counterintuitive. If you do 2 things and I do 8 things, who's ahead? And the answer is it all depends on which 2 you did versus which 8 I did. Right. So 80% of your success is going to be learning what to say and who to say it to. Your willingness and your ability to talk to others about the concept of real estate. Willingness and ability, I knew that was coming, to talk to people. You're paid, this is for some of you good news, and for some not as good. You're paid for talking to people about real estate. Does everybody understand? At the essence, you're paid for having conversations with people about real estate. And the more people you talk to, the more you will be paid. If you only talk to some people, then you're only going to get paid some. But if you talk to a lot of people, you could be paid a lot. Does everybody see that? It's all about having conversations. Some people don't commit. You know, one of the problems with being in real estate, it's too easy to get into, right? Even if you think, well, that was really hard. You know, I had to take those 3 online open book college courses, right? You know, I passed the exam on the 5th try, you know, it's too easy to get into. It's too easy to get out of. How many of you know failed real estate agents? People that had a license and aren't selling anymore. Is there any shame in that? Do they have to wear like a scarlet S or something for say? I don't know. Probably not. And it's too optional while you're in it. Right. And one of my father was an orthopedic surgeon, and he was upset one time when he found out that I'd made more money in 1 year than he did. And he didn't think that was fair because he went to school for a really long time, right? And I'm a real estate agent. People don't go to medical school with the attitude, I'm going to give it a shot. You know, I'm going to try it for 6 months. I'm not really sure if I want to hang around sick people all the time, right? But I'll give it a shot. And if I don't like it, I'll go on to do it, right? Yeah, that's not how you approach something that took that long to get into. You're going to be a doctor. Right, you understand? You might hate it for a while, but you're going to do it, right? So because people can get into real estate, how long do you need to commit before you start producing results? How long does it take to get a check? So this is, again, we're back to the audience participation. What?
Until you sell your.
Until you sell a house. If you, I had an agent who joined the office. She did an open house. Somebody bought the house at the open house. That was in June. In July, she had her first commission check. I'm not saying that's normal, right? You understand, but it is possible. Could it take a couple of months, right? Could it take 90 days, right? Could it take 6 months? And so the question is, are you committed? How many of you would say you're serious about selling real estate? How many? Serious? Oh, good. So you're committed, right? You're willing to do what you need to do long enough to produce results. Is that true? Yeah, you don't look as enthusiastic about that. Unless you run out of money. It doesn't necessarily take, it takes time to get paid. It could be up to 3 months, Too easy to get in and out of. I already did that. Harder at first. The metaphor I use is that your real estate business is like a railroad car sitting on the track. Inertia is a powerful force, right? The amount of push needed to get the railroad car to move forward is a lot of push. But once it's moving, it doesn't take as much push to keep it moving. And the faster it moves, the less amount of force is necessary to keep it in motion. And it can reach a point where you can sit on the car and ride it because you have momentum, right? I've no agents who say, well, I'm retiring. I'm just going to wait for all the referrals to die. And they just sit and people call them and say, I'd like to sell my house. I'd like to buy a house. And they go, okay, right? You understand? They're not pushing anymore, right? And so it's as getting through that initial difficult stage is one of the reasons that people give up, right? This is hard, right? It's not as easy as they said at the career night. The other thing is there's a guy named Maslow who wrote about the stages that people go through to become good at something. And the first stage is what he called the unconscious incompetent. And if you think of a little kid who wants to tie their shoes, but isn't really clear about how they fit on the feet, let alone how you tie them, right? You understand? They don't even know what they don't even know. Right? They don't know, brand new agents don't know what questions to ask, right? They don't know what they don't know, right? You know, so you read something on the internet. Then they become a conscious incompetent. This is when you know what you don't know, but you're still no good at it, right? This is the kid that wants to tie their shoes and you give them a few minutes, you know, to work on it. And then finally you just tie them and drag them away, right? Because you don't have all day. Then there's the conscious competent. That's the kid whose tongue is sticking out as he carefully, you know, laces the shoes and ties them. And then finally, there's where hopefully we are at, all right? Hopefully all of us, where you don't think about it, it just happens, right? You understand? And so as you're moving through these stages is sometimes difficult and painful, right? If there's no pain, no gain. So did I already do that? Yeah, I sort of already did that. How to succeed? Do everything. Right? If you're interested in making money in real estate, my suggestion is try everything. Do everything. Try everything. There are some people that say, well, I didn't think I would like talking to people by knocking on their doors, but then they liked it, right? You know what usually makes them like it is when somebody says, I'd like to sell my house, come on in and talk to me, then you like it a lot more than you did, you know, 10 minutes before. Earl Nightingale says, learning to do the things that unsuccessful people don't like to do is the hallmark of success. And what we're going to be talking about is a relatively simple thing, but that doesn't mean it's easy, right? You know, simple doesn't necessarily mean easy, right? Real estate in terms of building the business is simple, not necessarily easy. The goal should be in the next 30 days to do something, right? Write a contract, get a buyer to sign a buyer representation agreement, getting a seller to seller listing agreement, do something. And then you have to pick the right office, training, support, tools, and systems. This is an older handout, but I'll live with it. Must see the business as your own. There's a difference between, so people ask me, and by the way, for the managers, this is always a hysterical, you know, funny story. People will ask me, so where do I get the listings for me to work on? Does the office provide them or?
Yes.
Is that what happens, right? Does the office? And I said no, and then they say, well, why not? Right? You understand there's the employee mentality. The employee is somebody that works in a coffee shop, right? You understand you work at Starbucks, you know your employee because they yell at you all the time and threaten you. You know, and after a few years, you decide you know more about coffee than Starbucks, right? And then you start your own coffee shop. Right. Now, some people think of this as owning a business, but you're self-employed, right? And you understand that being self-employed that means you have a job, but you own it, right? You understand there's a difference between somebody who owns, you see, if you own the coffee shop, do you still have to unlock the door in the morning? stand behind the counter, make coffee for people, serve them, right? You understand, when you have 10 coffee shops, you're a business owner. But when you're self-employed, this is the bad news for some of you, I think, you still have a job. You still have a job, right? You own it, but it's still a job, right? You understand? You don't have to get up in the morning and unlock the door so customers can come in, do you? You don't have to, right? You don't have to stand behind the counter and make coffee and sell it to people. You don't have to, right? No one's going to yell at you like at Starbucks, like, hey, it's 10 o'clock, where are you, right? Isn't that why we are independent contractors? So we can have freedom and independence. That's, by the way, the biggest disadvantage to real estate: freedom and independence, right? You know, freedom is a gift not always wisely used. So one of the things you ought to think about is, do you have a goal? What do you want? Right? Do you want to make a lot of money selling real estate? Would you like to drive a nice car, right? Have really nice vacations, right? Wear nice clothes, right? Do you have a big goal? Do you have I just want to break even goal? Are you a hobbyist, right? Is this a hobby? Right? You know, it's about the same as golfing in terms of the amount of costs, right? You know, I don't know, right? You know, and then yeah, those are the different ones. And so, what are they? They've done many studies on this, and it would seem logical, but people that write down their goals are, first of all, people that have goals are likely to be more successful than people that do not. And two, people that have goals and have written them down are more successful than people that have goals and did not write them down. Do you have a goal? Is it written down? Is it someplace you can see? Have you shared it with anyone? Especially somebody that is counting on you to make money, you know. And by the way, having written goals and having a plan to work them, it might be less stressful, right? We might be better focused, more self-confident because we actually have a plan, perform better in all areas of life. Is that true? If you're doing well, making money in real estate, would that help your relationships, your family life, right? Would you be more fun to be around if you had more money, do you think, right? I would hope so. I would hope so.
Not McDonald's every day.
Yeah. That's right. Instead of no more Starbucks, you're down to 7-Eleven coffee. Isn't that it? Yeah. That motivates some people. So goal setting, and it would be good to have goals on a variety of different things, not only for your personal, but your real estate career, education, family, financial, physical, things to do for fun, service things. It would be, there's this, when I coach people, I eventually go through this with them, but there's something called the wheel of life, which if you Google search, you would find. And basically it's asking you, how well are you doing in all these different areas, right? It might be nice to have like a package of goals. Ever heard of the SMART goals? Specific, measurable, achievable or attainable, relevant, and time-based. And I think these are all, aren't these in your handout?
Yes.
I hope so. So a specific goal, by the way, in real estate, my suggestion would be to make it a number of transactions rather than money. There was a guy I hired many years ago who sold one house for $23 million his first year in real estate. Chinese investor. Next year, didn't. By the way, his volume looked really good, 23 million. Next year, he didn't sell anything. The next year, he didn't sell anything. The next year, he didn't sell anything. The next year, he didn't sell anything. By now, his volume doesn't look that good, right? You understand? He had one sale, one big one, and that was it, right? By the way, I didn't see him for 6 months after he closed that transaction. Can you imagine? Well, you know, what would you be doing, right? And so it was time to take a break. So the money is something that is varies depending upon price range and a bunch of different factors, but transactions is really what we want to come up with, because transactions is the metric that moves what is called lead generation or appointment setting activities. We're going to go into that. So you can do this if you would like. You can follow along with me if you like. Commission income in 1 year, how much money would you like to make? All right, you're by the way allowed to write in your handout. All right, afterwards, we're going to take copies of your goal page and scan them and put them on our company Facebook page with your picture. Maybe not. Maybe that may have been incorrect. So how much money would you like to earn? Let's say, can we just pick a number? Let's say gross income $300,000. How about that? Does that sound like a nice number? Gross income $300,000. Is that okay? Just for an example, I know this is a lot less than you were going to write down. I know that, right? But you know, could you live on that? I know you'd have to cut back, right? But you could maybe. So what would be an average sales price? What's a cheap house sell for in San Francisco? 1.5. How about 1 million? Because I'm standing up here without a calculator and I'm not a science major, right? You know, and so. Yeah, $1 million.
Oh, okay.
A cheap house.
It's hard.
What's the median price of a house in San Francisco County?
1.5.
Really? Last time I looked, it was 1.3 something.
Not 1.3.
Not anymore. I didn't. It's been a month. But so would everybody agree $1 million house? You know, right? That's right. We're slumming, isn't that right? Right. So if we wanted to do three, so by the way, what would an average commission be to you, right? And I can do this a little bit. Let's just say $25,000. So that would be 2.5% on a $1 million house. There's a little bit more numbers here, but I'm going to just make this simpler. If we wanted to gross 300,000 and a commission was on average 25,000, how many transactions would we need to gross 300,000? This is hard math. 10 times 25 is 250, I think. 12. There we go. 12. I can see I'm not the only non-engineer in the room. Yeah, that's good to know. So if we closed one transaction a month and it was $1 million, that and a 2.5% side, that'd be $25,000 a month times 12 transactions, right? Would be $300,000 of gross income. All right, we'll do the net. I'm going to skip the net right now, right? Does everybody understand? You'd be getting most of that. Does everybody, you know? So how many appointments are you going to need in order to have somebody that wants to buy or sell a house that eventually closes? Does anybody keep track of that? I had 10 appointments with buyers and sellers. How many, what's your ratio?
Ratio?
Percentage?
I would say maybe 2 out of 6.
2 out of 6. So that's 30%. 33. Or 1 out of a no, for an appointment, if you're doing 1 out of 100, we need to talk. Right, you know, stop hitting him with a stick, you know, during the appointment, that sort of thing. Right, but so he 1/3, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 6. I think that's close. Good agents that have momentum. Of course, it depends on who you're talking to and how you met them and a bunch of other things. Right, so many of the experienced agents have an 80 to 90% close rate. Right, because they're already been referred and everybody's already expecting to work with them. Let's say you're not as good as him and you're only getting 1 out of 4, 25%, right? So 4 appointments produces 1 transaction. So if you had 1 appointment a week for 48 weeks, because you're going to take a month off because you're in real estate, isn't that right? You take the traditional Halloween to President's Day vacation. Isn't that the traditional real estate agent vacation? Halloween to President's Day, something like that. You know, so let's say you did 1 appointment a week for 48 weeks and you closed 25% of them, that would be 12 transactions. You understand? You could do 12 transactions, which would gross you $300,000 a year from having 1 appointment a week. Might you have to book more than 1 appointment a week to have 1 appointment a week? Maybe. What would happen if you had an appointment a day? what would that do to your numbers? If you had 5 appointments a week, how many transactions would you, right? You'd be looking at the new Teslas, isn't that right? All right, looking for the custom options that you could, isn't that what, all right? Did you understand at 40, using those numbers, $1 million price point and a 2.5% side, 40 of those transactions and you've done $1 million in commission income, right? 40 of those, 40 million is $1 million at a 2.5% side. Appointment a week could get you up to 300. An appointment a day would get you up to $1 million. So now that seems easy. How do we get an appointment a week? Isn't that and that's going to cost extra. Oh, no, I'm supposed to cover that too. So you might have a plan now. All right, 1 a week. That's all we ask is 1 lousy appointment a week and 1 little transaction a month. That's all we ask, right? Does that seem like too much to ask? 1 a week, 1 a month. By the way, if you're not into goal setting and thinking it strategically through, how about 1 a month as a goal as a real estate agent? How about that? It's an easy number to remember, right? And how about 1 appointment a week? Is that an easy number to remember? Right. So now the question is, how many people are we going to have to talk to in order to get an appointment? Right. And then we're going to come up with a plan on how to get there. What the 90-day rule says is that stuff I'm doing today is more likely to have an effect in 90 days than it is right now. 70% of all real estate transactions comes from following up with people, not the initial contact. 70% of all real estate transactions are from follow-up, not initial contact. So if I'm talking to people today, they may or may not work today, but if I follow up with them next month and I talk to more people, and even if they don't do it, then the next month I've got another group of new people plus the ones from the month before and the month before. You understand the goal is to get this to build on itself. How many of you are full-time real estate agents? Full-time? 40 hours a week? Is that full-time 40 hours a week? 40 hours a week, right? Full-time? We have more than that, right? Let's just 40 hours a week. What would be, if you don't have a lot of escrows, what would be the #1 thing you ought to be doing if you don't have a lot of clients right now? Anybody have a thought about what that might be?
Making appointments.
Making appointments. Talking to people about getting appointments. Appointment setting activities. Sometimes this is called prospecting. People don't like that word. Sometimes it's called lead generation. Sometimes people don't like that, right? It's a 4-letter word, right? WORK, right? It's a 4-letter word. How about appointment setting activities?
Like
Right.
networking.
What?
Like networking.
Networking would be an appointment setting activity. Anything, texting, I've had people say, does texting count? Can you set an appointment by texting with people? And says, yes, I have. So anything that could result in you having an appointment. Remember, the metric is we want 1 appointment a week. Right? Isn't that right? Isn't that the goal? 1 a week. So would it be reasonable if your goal, would it be reasonable that you're going to spend 80% of your time focused on doing the most important thing in order to move your business forward? How many would say that would be a reasonable thing when you're not really busy? 80% of your time. Now, if you're working 40 hours a week and 80% of your time is being spent in lead generation or appointment setting activities, that's like 30 some hours a month when you divide by the number of weeks in a month and that's so many hours a week. I think I did the math. It's 32 hours a week divided by 5 days is 6.4 hours a day. 6.4, let's round it down to 6 to give you some, bathroom breaks. So 6 hours a day would be less than 80% of a 40-hour work week. I did this thing with where I was coaching in elsewhere. That's all I say, elsewhere. And one of the guys that I was coaching had invited his wife, who was a stager, to hear a speaker that I had arranged to come and talk. And the speaker had made $500,000 his first year in real estate. in Dublin areas, and he door knocked 6 hours a day, 5 days a week for his first year and made over 500,000. And by the way, the two of they're since divorced because what she wanted to know from her husband was, how many hours a day do you knock on doors? Why don't you knock on doors 6 hours a day? How come? Why not? We're not making any money. Why aren't you? Does everybody understand how this? You have to be careful who you invite to come and hear speakers, right? You understand? Because they might think, oh, why don't you do that? How about this? If we wanted to really work 40 hours a week, we wouldn't be in real estate. How about this? 20 hours a week. Does this sound better already? I'm only expecting you to work 20 hours a week. That's it. And would it be reasonable that if you don't have business, 80% of those 20 hours could at least be spent on talking to people about buying or selling real estate? How about that? That comes out to, when we round it down, 3 hours a day. 3 hours a day is an 80% focus of a 20-hour work week on doing the most important thing that you could do to move your business forward. Do you know why most people don't make a lot of money in real estate? They don't spend 3 hours a month doing this, let alone 3 hours a week, let alone 3 hours a day. Right? You understand? They're not even spending that much time a month, let alone 3 hours a day. But you guys are different because you all said you were serious, right, about something. Isn't that right? Yeah. Serious, right? So 3 hours a day. By the way, I'd be happy with an hour a day. How about 30 minutes? 30 minutes, I'll take 30 minutes. 30 minutes a day, that's all. Anybody could do 30 minutes, couldn't you? Couldn't you do 30 minutes, right? Just do 30 minutes.
That's asking a lot.
Yeah, well, I know. Pretty soon we're down to 10, 5. Talk to people at Starbucks, something. By the way, the general rule of thumb is you're going to need to have 50 conversations in order to get an appointment. 50 conversations to get an appointment. Now, your mileage may vary, but why not go with this to see how it goes? You should. One of the first mentors that I had, which is a long time, I don't know if he's alive, he used to use the phrase, count your figs. And what he meant by that is he wanted to know, what were your numbers? How many hours did you work? How many people did you talk to? How many appointments did you set? Right? Know your numbers. By the way, if I know my numbers, can I make adjustments to reach my goals? Right? So why not start with 50 to 1 as the ratio for conversations to appointments? So if we want 1 appointment a week, we have to have 50 conversations a week. And if we're working 5 days a week, that would be 10 a day. Right? 10 a day times 5 days a week is 50. 50 equals 1 appointment. In 3 hours a day, could we talk to 10 people? Is that possible? To talk to 10 people in 3 hours? If you're doing open houses, could you talk to 10? I did one yesterday. I talked to about 20 people. Right? 2 or 3 of them are interested to somewhat. So we're going to ask for a number from you at some point. Again, this is going on our Facebook page next to your picture with your goal. Well, maybe not. But it would be good for you, I think, to say, my goal is to talk to so many people a week. Right, we're going to get into that. My goal is to talk to so many people a day. Right? So how do you have to meet people? You know, you have to meet people. You have to tell people you're in real estate. You have to admit it. So now this gentleman is wearing a Century 21. I'm looking to see who's not a secret agent. Secret agent. Wow, we got a lot of secret agents. Some people actually wear disguises, right? You know, so you don't look like an agent, right? You know, when I'm walking around sometimes around an open house and people just start talking to me because apparently I look like an agent. I don't know why, right?
Where do you get your shirt?
Where do I get my shirt? I'll send you a link. If you log into, by the way, there's this website where you can find all this stuff. You might want to write it down. It's GOOGLE is the website. And when you get there, type in Century 21 shirts. Or you can log into 21 online and go to tools, and down near the bottom of it, there's a link that will say career apparel. That means stuff like this. Name badges. I was at a Nob Hill grocery store checking out, wearing, this. And the checker says, so how's the real estate business? And and so I said, it's interesting. I just listed this condominium. This is down in San Jose. I said, I just listed this condominium. It's a great starter home. Who do you know that's looking to buy their first home? And she said, I am. All right. And I ended up selling her, not mine was a dog, but I sold her another condominium in the Vista Park area of San Jose. And 5 years later, she listed it with me when she moved away. Right. So there may have been other real estate agents in that grocery store that day, but she never said anything to them because they were secret agents. I was at a realtors meeting down in Gilroy. Yes, that's where I'm from, that area, in Gilroy. And the realtors meeting is like at the top and down at the bottom. There's a coffee shop, and the restrooms are in the coffee shop. So I'm walking through the coffee shop. We all are, back and forth. And there's this group of old guys sitting there drinking coffee, and one of them looks at me and he says, how's the real estate business? There were 50 real estate agents that had walked through that coffee shop that morning. And I was the one he called out to.
Why?
Because he recognized the logo on my shirt. Right? Now, I was at Keller Williams for 7 years, and people asked me if that was a paint store. I'm not kidding. Right? People think Coldwell Banker is a bank. I'm not, there are people who think it's a bank. Right? So if I had, it's coffee time. There's 2 coffee cups you can pick from. One of them is Starbucks. It's got their logo on it. By the way, did you hear they're going to change their name to $4 from Starbucks? Anyhow, so the other one is Starbucks, and it's $4. The other one is Dunkin' Donuts, 99 cents. Which coffee do most people buy? Starbucks. So people generally go for brands. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And they're willing to pay more?
They don't know that.
Are they? Well, but people I think do know that they're paying more at Starbucks.
They do.
I bet they know that. I bet if you ask people, can you get coffee cheaper than this? Most people would say yes, right? So generally people prefer brands and they're willing to pay more. And one of the advantages of being with Century 21, it's the name, right? You understand? And as long as you don't hide from people that you're in real estate, they might talk to you. Now, if we're being paid to have conversations with people, wouldn't it be nice if they talked to us? I see agents, they putting on their name badge when they come into a training and taking it off when they leave. They are unclear on the concept, right? Do you understand? Because having conversations with other real estate agents doesn't count because they're unlikely to buy, sell, or invest with you, right? Right? Do you understand that you need to meet people? I can tell sometimes that people get their license and they tell everybody, they tell the person at the bank, how are you doing today? Wonderful, I got my real estate license, I'm about to start my real estate career. Who do you know that wants to buy or sell real estate? Right, you understand? There's some people that just do that naturally, right? And they get business. And there's some people that this is not as natural for. You get to grow. You have to understand there's active and passive in terms of how are we going to get appointments. Active means we're actually going to go talk to people in person, on the phone. We're going to talk to people. Passive means, by the way, the plus and minus for that. The plus is it's most effective. Having actual conversations with people is more effective than texting and or emailing. Number 2, it doesn't cost anything to talk to people. Right, you understand? The name badge costs a few bucks. The shirts aren't that expensive. One of the guys, he found somebody on the internet. You'll find this hard to believe that printed the logo on shirts with his name stitched underneath it for less than what they cost through the Century 21 suppliers. We don't really care, right? You understand? But the cost of that is very low. So prospecting takes time. right? Do you understand? Going out and talking to people is time consuming, but it's most effective and it doesn't cost anything. Marketing is when we spend money, that's a downside, in order to get people to call us, to contact us. That's very time efficient because only interested people are calling us. Right? Isn't that better? But then it costs money. And eventually, when you get started, you want to start with talking to people, face to face, nose to nose, and eventually add in marketing. One of them is called prospecting, and the other one is more of marketing. Think of it, the difference between a shark and a clam, right? The shark swims around and looks for something to eat and chases it down, whereas the clam lays on the beach, shell open, waiting for something to wash in, right? Some people are seeing the real estate agent metaphor there, where we're just waiting, right? I'm waiting, right? Waiting for the tide to come in. Eliminating rejection. This is going to get to the concept of bringing a lollipop. Well, that's metaphorical rather than literal. So an item of value, something that you would have that you could give them that they might find remotely interesting. By the way, every month I put together a newsletter of what's going on in the market in your area. If you're interested, you want to keep up on what's happening in your neighborhood. Right? If the answer is yes, I'll send you something every week. I don't mind. Wouldn't bother me to do that. Right? An item of value. And if you have an item of value, you're getting less rejection. If all I do is knock on people's door and say, "Hi, my name's Mike, since you're 21, when do you plan on selling your house?" All right. Now, by the way, eventually, there's nobody here that was at my open house yesterday. I remember where I am. But I ask people when they say their neighbors, "Great, how long have you lived here?" "Oh, really? When do you plan on selling your house?" I just ask people that. Right? Do you know what they usually do? Tell me when they plan on selling their house, if they know. Right? So when do you plan on buying a house? Now, if I ask that question enough, somebody's going to say yes, but I might want to have a little more talk, right? So offering them something of value and finding out. We'll talk more about that later. So if you have a 40-hour week, 80%, 32, that's 6 points. I already did that. This is the one I did before I edited it, but at least it was printed out, and you have the same thing I do. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? So that's good. So let's say you're going to talk to 10 people a day, 5 days a week, that's 50 a week, and you did that 50 weeks a year, that would be 2,500 people you would have talked to in a year. If you talk to 10 people a day, 5 days a week for 50 weeks, that would have been 2,500 people. Now, assuming that people move once every 15 years, which, by the way, is high or low, depending upon, are we talking about condos, or are we talking about luxury homes, right? But let's say people move once every 15 years. That would mean there's 166 transactions, because 1/15 of those people are moving every year. And let's say you're really bad at this, right? You're not any good at talking to people, and 90% of the people you have conversations with will not work with you, and you only get 1 out of 10 of them. That's 16 transactions, right? 16 transactions. By the way, if you talk to that many people, you couldn't do only 16 transactions. Right? You understand? You'd be doing a lot more, because it's a lot easier to get business when you've got business than it is to get business when you don't got business. Right? You understand? If you have listings and you have clients, it's a lot easier to get more of them. Right? So this would get easier, not harder, as you started to go. And then, of course, they might know people. So, sphere of influence. According to the Union's 2018 survey, 39% of buyers found their agent through a referral from a friend, family member, and 15% used an agent they'd used before. See how many I have at the end. I'm just, that's one. All right, just kidding. I don't. So, and by the way, 15% use the agent they'd used before. According to the survey, over 80% of the buyers said they would use the agent again. However, only 15% use the agent again. Why the big difference between the percentage of people who say they would use the agent again and the ones who use the agent again? Anybody have an idea why there's such a big difference?
Quality of service.
Follow up.
Follow up. The last time they ever saw their agent was in the rear view window of their car as they were leaving the title company, right? The agent was in the parking lot waving at them as they drove away. And that's the last they ever heard from the agent, right? Agent has changed offices 4 times, right? Changed cell phone numbers to save, a couple dollars a month, and they can't find their agent. Their agent is no longer following up with them. 71% of buyers interviewed one agent before they decided that they had found their agent, right? So should you be talking to people you know, right? And then why? What is it they're looking for? And find the right home, negotiate, more on negotiations, that's a lot. Comparable paperwork. Now, the reason I include this is that if you were putting together your value proposition for a buyer, you might want to talk about the things that the buyers say they're looking for an agent to do. I'm just throwing that out as a possibility. If you're selling, 41% of sellers who used a real estate agent found their agents by a referral from friends, family. So 39% of buyers, it was a referral, and 41% of sellers, it was a referral. 23% used the agent they had worked with previously. Again, over 80% said they would, but it's a lot less. 74% of home sellers contacted one agent. Right? Should you be talking to the people you already know? Apparently. And again, this is what they're looking for when they're looking for an agent. So where are we now? Do you have a database? How many of you have a database? We got a couple of hands that went up. What that would mean, you have a central place. Could be a spreadsheet, could be 4x6, 5x8 cards, could be scratched on a legal size piece of paper, could be a program like Zap. You could be spending money on Top Producer, Market Leader, Active Agent, Agent Achieve, Realty Juggler, Chime, right? Conversion, Commission Incorporated. There's only about 2,000 real estate agent database programs, right? And you get one in Century 21 called Zap. Do you have a database? If the answer is no, this is, we have uncovered the first goal. Create a database. Right? If you don't have one, you need to get one. And then you might want to know how many people are in it. If you're to go through everybody in your email program, everybody in your cell phone, everybody, how many of you have Facebook friends that you've never met? And LinkedIn connections, right? Have you gone through everyone you know and every connection you have to put them all together into one place? Have you done that? Yeah, he has, right? And then how many are in it? Now, then the question is, where do we want to go? Now, if there's a guy named Brian Buffini who got most of his stuff from a guy named Joe Stumpf, and these are referral type follow up with people that you know. And that plus some other studies, what they've shown is that if I have a database and I'm emailing them stuff every month, I can expect after a year to be getting somewhere between a 2.5% to as high as a 5% return. If I add to that a phone call at least once a quarter, then that's going to raise that percentage from 5 to maybe 7.5. And if I make it a point to meet with them at least once a year, twice would be better, face-to-face, coffee, something at least, that raises my rate of return on the database to as high as 10%. So if you got 10 people that would refer 2 people a year to you, and another 30 people that would refer 1 person a year to you. That's a lot of referrals, right? You understand that's, for those of you that, I know this isn't an engineer group, so that was 50, right? For those, that was 50, right? And we could do that. That was, how many people? 40. But let's say if you wanted to, so what would your goal be? If you're going to get a 10% return, so you might want to say, I want to grow my database by 250 people over the next 12 months, right? I'm not saying that should be your number. I'm just saying you might want to have a goal. I want so many people in my database in 6 months, each month. I want to add each day, each week. I want to add so many people to my database until it reaches a certain number over time. So, yeah.
What is a good number?
600.
That's it?
That's a good number.
It's
Yes.
enough to make a Rolodex.
Yeah. I'm surprised you know what a Rolodex is. She must have been a history major. Only some, I don't get it. I don't either. All right. So 600, because 600 is enough people. What you're going to do is classify people A, B, and C.
Right.
Right. A means an A plus. Right. An A plus is somebody who's already referred somebody to you. An A is somebody you believe would refer somebody to you. Right? These are the people, if they hear somebody having a conversation about real estate, might interrupt them and introduce you to them. Right? Do you understand? These people we're going to treat differently than people who just know our name. Right? A B is somebody that you recognize, they're in your database, but you really don't know. And a C is somebody that's in your database, but you don't know who they are. If the police called you and said, we have a lineup, can you come down and pick this person out? You'd say, I can't. I know they're in my database, but
How would you make an appointment? Like as you said, if you're gonna meet them, you might increase 10% chance to getting that deal. But,
Right.
Like these people you never get contact with, but they're in your database. How are you gonna?
we send them stuff. The goal is to move the C's to B's, the B's to A's, and the A's to A plus. So what you need to do is to have something that you, an item of value, some bait that you can drag in front of them that gets them to react.
But eventually you have to face to see them, right?
It's very difficult to sell homes to people you've not met.
Yeah.
I've done that. I sold a house that I had never seen to buyers that I had never met, right? But that's unusual, right? Normally you might have to actually meet them. It was done by, go to a meeting. So do you have a goal? Could be 400, could be 100, right? You understand? Let's say 2 people. You wanted to grow your database by 400. 2 people a day, 5 days a week. That's 10 a week times 4 weeks in a month is 40 a month times 10 months is 400 people. If you had 400 people in your database and you were talking to them, could you sell real estate from that? The answer is yes. Why don't more agents do? They don't talk to 2 people a day. Right? You understand? Most real estate agents do not talk to 2 new people a day. Right? And then I've had people say, well, I'm quitting. This one guy said, I did everything you suggested. And I'm like, no, you didn't. All right? No, you didn't. No, you didn't. So if we know what our goal is and we subtract what we've got, then we know how many we want to add. And if we divide that by 12, we know how many we need to add a month. Is this sophisticated? Here are the 4 laws of the database. Number 1, organize it and build it. So what are the things that I find missing in many real estate agents' databases is, data. Right? Most real estate agents' databases lack data. So for example, if we're in real estate, we're likely to send people without children. It's back to school time. And we'll send men Mother's Day stuff and women Father's Day stuff and to people that are not mothers or fathers anyhow, right? You understand, because we don't really know who in our database is what, let alone have we taken the time to categorize people based upon whether or not they do or do not have kids, and whether or not they are and are not parents, or whether or not, you understand, we just don't do that, right? So we don't know what to send them because we can't customize anything because we don't have any data. So one of the things that our database program, which is what most do, is they allow you to create categories of people. For example, if you know people that like to golf, could you do something with that if you also like to golf? Could you arrange, let's all go golf together things? Could you, I go once a month to a networking event thrown by a lender where she buys hors d'oeuvres and things like that, gives people drink tickets, and people show up, right? And I know I've given her business, and I'm not the only one that shows up that does that. Do most people drink coffee? Yes, most people do. So one of the metrics you ought to be looking at is how many coffee dates do you have every day and every week? Right? Dates, you know, where you're talking to somebody. It's not that kind of a date, but you know what I'm saying, where you're meeting somebody for coffee. How many times do you do that each day and each week? Now, I know this is going to sound insane for me to say, but some of you aren't drinking enough coffee. I know. That seems crazy. But should you be seeing, are there vendors that would have coffee with you? Lenders. Do you think a lender would have a coffee with you? Right? Would inspectors and home warranty companies, wouldn't just about everyone, right, that would like you to refer business to them have coffee with you? Right? I'm just saying. So we're going to build one. Feed it every day. You should have every day. My goal is to add so many people to my database. Communicate with them in a systematic way. We'll talk about that. And service the leads. So who do you know? You might, I think I have it at the end of this one, but I'm not entirely sure. I had a thing I put together called 101 Ways to Lead Generate. 101 ways. So doesn't that sound great? Basically, it's anything you could do that would put you in contact with people. There are some agents, by the way, that are active in a church and they get business. Some agents are active in particular causes, charities. They get do you understand what percentage of the American public now or in the future is going to buy or sell real estate? Just about everyone. But you understand, everyone you know and everyone you meet is a potential client. Everyone. All right? Just about. Right, except for, you know, have you ever been pitched to have your advertising on a shopping cart? How many of you have ever, I've gotten that. See, that always seemed like a really good idea, because first of all, homeless people push them around, which gives you more advertising, right? And just think of this, we sell homes, they're homeless. I mean, isn't that just like a logical, isn't that? Well, anyhow. So most of the people, however, that we're going to meet are going to buy or sell real estate, and certainly they're going to know people that are going to buy or sell real estate. So everybody you know and everyone you meet, who do you know and who can you meet? So the first thing is you have to meet people. Now, if you don't have a script, you ought to work on one. By the way, if you meet people, what's the most common question they're going to ask you if they know you're in real estate? What do they always say?
How's the market?
How's the market? Do you have an answer? Not really.
So what's the best answer for all?
Best answer for all.
Yes.
So one answer that never changes, I could use for buyers and sellers. I could use for people in San Francisco or Oakland or Los Angeles. You could say unbelievable, but there's a better answer than that. Did you have something? Yeah.
Say don't time the markets.
Don't time the markets. It's time in, not timing the real estate market. So if somebody said that to me, like, so how's the real estate market? I would say it's moving, it's shifting right now. Is that true? By the way, I've been in real estate and every year it's been shifting. Right. By the way, the year was 1986. Right. I was teaching real estate before that. So every year that I've been in real estate, since 1986, I was 9 years old when I got my real estate license. Yeah, I had to get permission from my parents, special permission to be licensed
You
that
need a
young.
high school degree.
No, you don't. You just need 3. But anyhow, it's true that that's a technical thing. So every year the market has been shifting, right? You understand? The market is always shifting. So I always tell people, though, the market is shifting right now. So how the market is somewhat depends on whether or not you're interested in buying or selling. Are you interested in buying or selling? What do you? Yes.
I spoke to a homeless at Andronicus on 14, and I was telling the market was shifting from the financial district to Mission Bay.
Uh-huh.
And I was telling him the prices on Soma are not as high as Mission Bay. He's very educated, but he's a homeless at Andronicus.
Yeah.
He's there every day, and it's been going on for a while.
Talking to homeless people, that's good practice. That's good. That's good.
Educated people.
Yeah. Yeah, educated people. Now, the thing is that, that doesn't mean he's not right, right? But how about this? Would it be a good idea for you every week to have an elevator speech prepared?
Yes.
You guys already know what I mean by an elevator speech. You're in an elevator and somebody looks at you and says, "So, by the way, it's annoying because when I'm in elevators and things, people talk to me about real estate. I know it's annoying. Isn't that annoying, right? That people just interrupt me and ask me real estate questions, right? So, I mean, it's terrible. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
Right? You know, that's why you take your name badge off when you leave the building so people don't bother you, right? And right? Isn't that right? Right? Because we got stuff to do, important things, right? Right? More important than that. So would it be a good idea for you to run and look in the MLS and see are prices going up and down? Are they going up? Are they going down? Have they gone up a lot? Is days on market going up or down? Are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market? Does anybody know what the metric is that determines usually whether or not a market is a buyer's market or a seller's market? What that's called?
Is there multiple offers?
No, that's part of it, but that's not the metric. You can still have multiple offers. Inventory, months of unsold inventory. Does anybody know what the number is of months of unsold inventory that historically marks it as a buyer's market?
3 months.
6.
6.
Do you know how many months of inventory we have right now?
Half.
About 2 point something. So does that sound like a buyer's market? Not yet, right? But the market is shifting. Prices aren't rising as much, right? We have multiple offers only if they're priced right. So what I'm saying is you ought to think about what you're going to say when they ask you how's the real estate market.
So like when they ask me how's the real estate market, can I say, hey, I think I got some listings for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would find out if they want to buy or sell.
Okay.
Right? Because let's say they want to sell. What?
It's just too fast. It's just like leading into it.
Right.
So like what would I say? Hey, I think I got some listings that you might like.
Yeah. That's better than, that's not bad. I'm just saying that I would say it depends on whether or not you're buying and selling. Are you thinking of buying or selling? Right? Which would you be most interested in? And then they're going to say something. Buying, selling, I might throw in investing. What are you most interested in? If they say buying or investing, I'm going to say, well, you know, I can get you a list of properties that are not in the MLS, that are good deals, that you're not going to see by going to Zillow or to Redfin or any of the others. It's a special list I put together of good buys, best deals in a particular area, harder to find. Are you interested in getting access to that?
Is that true?
Sure.
Well, what are you gonna give it to them?
When?
What are you going to give it to them?
Notices.
Besides that?
A notice of default. Is that in the MLS?
No.
No. Notices of default are not in the MLS. What program do you have access to now that would give you a list of those? By zip code, city, county, price range, wherever you want it. Title company, which software do you have access to right now? Realist. What's another piece of software you have access to right now that would run that for you? RPR, very good. So could you run that for somebody if they agreed to work with you?
Yes.
Yes. All right. How about for sale by owners? Are they in the MLS?
Are you going to Are you going to knock on that homeowner's door to,
Sure.
okay.
How about everything, by the way, that's on my list, you ought to be doing anyhow. For sale by owners, not in the MLS. Expired listings are not in the MLS. Should you be talking to them anyhow? Tell me, this is why I have a guy that I met yesterday at the open house. Tell me the geographic area you're interested in. If it's not on the MLS, if I can't find it in all the other places, I'm going to reach out to people that own homes in that neighborhood that have been there long enough, they're likely to sell, that homes fit the criteria you're looking for and would likely to be in your price range. Remember, I get a referral fee. So,
So how do you get the off the market in our Century 21 family?
well, there aren't any. That's not the point. The point isn't that we have a bunch of off-market listings sitting around right now. The point is that if they had an appointment with me and told me what they were looking for, and they committed to using me as their agent, I would do an outreach program to find it.
Okay.
Right, but if another agent has it off market, there's oftentimes no money in it for you. Right, yes.
How do you get independent and what is this?
That's another class. I just made one last week, which I have a video of, I call it buyer loyalty. You know, pardon?
They're not very loyal.
Well, it depends on, everybody's listening to the same radio station. It's WIFM. What's in it for me? So the reason that most buyers are not very loyal is because most agents don't do anything of value to help them find a home. They wait for their client to find it on Zillow, Redfin, or some other program, let them know, they unlock the door, and they have software that'll write an offer. And that's all most agents do, right? Now, if you're willing to, is it good to have listings? Say yes.
Yes.
You have to list to last in real estate. So let's say you don't have any listings, but you have a buyer who's committed and wants to buy a property in the Sunset District, right? They want to buy a property. This, by the way, is the best marketing piece. I have a buyer that may be interested in your home. Right? I have a buyer interested in buying a home in this neighborhood. They're looking for a 4-bedroom. The more you tell them, the more they're going to respond. And what we're really looking for is listings. First of all, we'd like to hook the buyer up with a house, but chances are they're going to find it in the MLS anyhow. And if we have a buyer that's committed to work with us, we can use that as leverage to get listings from people. Right? So once you have so one of the things that you're going to need to do is to strategically figure out what is your value that you're going to offer a buyer. Right? What is the value you have that you could offer a buyer? And if it's a seller, I say I have ways in which it'll save you a lot of money when you sell your house. And I do a workshop once a month on how to sell your house and not pay taxes and a bunch of other things, right? So sellers want to sell for the highest price possible, and they want to net the most money, and buyers want to buy the most house possible for the least amount of money. Isn't that what they want? And so you need to craft what you're going to say so that it fits whether they're buying or selling. All right, so you ought to talk to people, put them in your database, send them a thank you note, or at least a text, handwritten notes, right? Old school, people aren't used to getting them, right? You ought to put them on some sort of a campaign at least once a week for 8 weeks. You ought to do something. I have a sample. I have some blanks coming up, but I'll give you an example. This is a free tip, right? Are you happy? You ready for a free tip?
Yes.
In the old school, this was called Operation Donut Drop, right? Operation Donut Drop. And yes, I've heard that donuts are evil and they're not healthy and they're full of gluten and sugar and processed food. It isn't about the donuts. Don't tell me you don't like donuts, right? Yes, you can use cookies if you want. Yes, you can take fruit if you want. Yes, it's possible not to have anything, but I'm going to do it with donuts, if that's okay with you. So you go buy a box of donuts and put your business card maybe on the side of the box, and you go visit Bank of America and ask to talk to whoever's in charge of home loans. And when you meet them, you say, hi, my name's Mike, City 21. Thanks for taking the time to meet with me. I brought you donuts. And you hand them your little box of donuts. For those of you that are new, you might not get the inside joke. But this is the inside joke. That loan agent has bought a lot of donuts for real estate agents over the years. Bagels, donuts, croissants, lunches, right? Do you understand? Every time we do something, right, you see a group of realtors that are going to do something and they want to sponsor, right? They call a loan agent up and ask them to bring stuff. This in neuro-linguistic programming is called a pattern interrupt. So the loan agent looks, they blink usually, and they're like, you brought me donuts? You know, that's a switch. And you say, and this is what I say, but I'm a smart ass, so you might not want to do this. I always say, well, yeah, every time you come to our office, you have to bring food. You know, I just thought since I came to your office, I ought to bring something back, you know. And I actually was doing this at Wells Fargo, and the loan agent had another loan agent take a picture of me handing him donuts to him. And he posted it on Facebook to his loan agent buddies that a real estate agent brought him donuts that day. I'm just saying. So then you say to Bank of America, thanks for taking the time to work with me. I've reached out to you because, well, you're Bank of America. And I'm sure we're going to work together at some time in the future. I just thought it'd be a good idea to introduce myself. Maybe you could share, if you have a couple of minutes, what you see happening in the business, what's going on in the market. What do I need to know to work with you? This is a slow pitch, isn't it, to a salesperson? It's a slow pitch to them. And then they'll talk, sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for 15 minutes, sometimes for 50 minutes. I was doing this with an agent who wanted me to go with her because she was afraid of the mean loan agents. She opted for cookies, right? We went to Chase. I'm beginning my little spiel. She hands him the cookies. He blinked and said, you brought me cookies? I mean, you know, right on cue, you know, and I'm starting my pitch, and the guy stops me and he says, I get it. You're here for referrals. And I'm like, yeah. And he said, you're smart. I do about 25, 30 purchase loans a month. Occasionally people ask me if I could recommend an agent. I tell them, no, I don't do that. I don't know. Now, Vera's getting excited and pushing her business cards at him. And I'm like, well, you don't need to worry about that anymore. By the way, you do mortgage days. How many of you have never heard that term, mortgage day? A couple of you raise your hand. He had, because he flinched when I said it. Mortgage day is when the bank puts up balloons and flyers and they have a table and they're talking to people about doing loans, and they invite a real estate agent to be there with them. Would it give you credibility to be in Bank of America with their permission talking to people that are interested in getting loans? Would that be a valuable thing, right? He winced when I said mortgage days, and he said, I'm supposed to be doing them. It's in my budget. I just haven't been. I said, how about home buying seminars? He said the same thing. Did you hear the magic words he said? It's in my budget. He has a budget. The guy at Chase had a budget for doing stuff like this, but he just hadn't been, right? How about you go talk to 2 banks a day, 5 days a week for 4 weeks? You would have talked to 40 loan agents. The goal is to find 5 that'll refer 2 people a year to you. Maybe 3 or 4, once a quarter, right? And I have a plan. Once you've talked to the loan agent, you send them a handwritten note. 8 weeks, we're going to do something once a week. Week 1, we send them a handwritten note. The first day, thank you for meeting with me. Look forward to working with you in the future. You throw in your business card. I oftentimes throw in a Starbucks or Pete's. The next one's on me. 1 week later, we call them. What's the script? Did you get my handwritten note? Right? They say, yeah, I got it. The next week, we send them an item of value, a newsletter. Does the loan agent necessarily know what median prices are? They know what interest rates are. Do they know days on market and median prices or what's going on? Probably not. The next week, we call them. What's the script? Did you get the item of value I sent you last week? We call the next week, maybe we send them another item of value. Maybe we meet with them for coffee. We send them another item of value. We meet, we call them, right? You understand? We once a week for 8 weeks, we want to do something with them. By the end of those 8 weeks, do they know we're a real estate agent? And when somebody says, I don't know, this is true for your sphere of influence and for the bank people. This gentleman here before you. You like potato chips?
Yes.
Name a potato chip.
Just Pringles.
Pringles. How about another?
Laura Scott.
Lotus Cutters. So you said Lotus Cutters. Who said Lotus Cutters? All right. So what's another one? Just him. What's another one?
Cheetos.
What's another one?
Kettle.
All right. Now, did you notice the first one came relatively quick? Second one was slower. Third one, he actually had to think. So do you know a good real estate agent? The person is going to say one name relatively quick, a second name if they thought about it, and a third name only if you gave them some time. If your name is not the name they think about first, you're not going to get any business. Does everybody understand? Top of mind. When somebody says to the loan agent, do you know a good real estate agent? You want them to have your name on their lips, right? We don't want them to have to think, who's been sending me, who brought me donuts, right? You understand? We don't want to be a secret agent with them. Or do you understand if you do something like that once a week for 8 weeks and you go and you have coffee with them and you started with 40 lenders, could you eventually find 5 or 6 that might be interested in referring business to you? Are you doing open houses? Some of you are. Is it possible the loan agent's going to say, you give me a lead, I'll give you a lead? Right? And then you say, great, sounds fair. You like doing open houses? And most of them are going to say yes. So do you have a vehicle? Should you be doing that anyhow? Right? So do you have something of value you could trade if you were doing that anyhow? You could have them go with you to the open house. They have a better chance of getting a client than you do. Does everybody understand we want to create a systemized follow-up plan? If you get a lead, be very, thankful. And by the way, you want to do a really good job. And let's say Bob refers Mary to me. One of the things I'm going to say to Mary, I really want to thank Bob for referring us together. And if you appreciate the way we work together and the work I've done, I would really appreciate it if you would tell Bob that you're happy. Now, if Bob refers Mary to me and Mary says to Bob, I was really happy you referred me to Mike, what's that going to do to Bob's motivation to refer more people to me? It's going to go up, right? Stay in touch. At least every 30 days you want to talk to people, you want to do something. You should classify your database. I've already gone through this a little bit. Advanced advocates are raving fans, people that would bring your name into a conversation, whether they're being asked or not. Advocates are people that if asked, a good realtor would say your name. Friendly people are people that are friendly, but you don't really know them very well. And then you have, just names. And you want to move the 3s into the 2s and the 2s into 1s. If you can find 10 people that send you 2 referrals and another 30 that would send you 1, you can make $1 million in our market in commissions. Right? That's 50 clients. Yeah.
That homeless person I was telling you about, I saw yesterday at Broncos. He called me up on my first name when we were sitting there talking.
Maybe you should
No, but I had given him a business card.
What you should do is sponsor him to go through my real estate school so he can get his license, and then partner with him. If he's willing to talk to people. So if you don't know what to talk to anybody about, because you're sort of antisocial and not very, not very communicative, Ford is a handy, ask people about their family, their job, their occupation. Relationships, got children, that sort of thing. Desires, dreams. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? So the I already talked about the once a week for 8 weeks idea. Didn't I already talk about that? Once a week for 8 weeks. What you might want to do, and I have some samples of these someplace, but think about what you might want to do for buyers, for sellers, and for your sphere. The thing about people that are in our sphere, we don't know if they're buyers or sellers. We just know they're there, right? But if somebody that is thinking about buying, you would have different contact than somebody that's thinking about selling. Where would you find this kind of stuff?
MLS.
MLS. Where else? Does Century 21 have a whole bunch of stuff? If you log into 21 Online, you go to Business Builder. That's powered by a company called Market Leader, and Market Leader is the largest provider of real estate related services like this. And you'll notice that there's a whole long list for buyers and sellers and sphere of influence, and there are hundreds of templates already that you could modify. Right? And so you might want to plan out what are you going to do for your 8-week plan for buyers and sellers and for people you don't know if they're buyers or sellers. Then you ought to be making sure that everybody in your database gets something every month, right? And I think I wrote in a 12-month program. Let's say we were doing something in a farm area, a geographic farm, or even a demographic farm, or any kind of a targeted market. There's a once a month for a year. In other words, if you're farming a geographic area, you ought to be doing something at least once a month. You understand? If you're doing it every other month, you might as well give the money to charity, right? Because you're not going to get real estate usually from that. You need to do it at least once a month. And it would be good to plan that out. Is there an activity I'm going to do, a mailer I'm going to do, when am I going to do it? And to decide what marketing you're going to do with whom on a monthly basis. So how about, I came up with a list. This allows you to end up with about 33 touches, but there could be more of social media. A newsletter once a month. Now, the Business Builder system has newsletters, but they're generic. Could you put together something about what's happening in the San Francisco real estate market once a month? What's happening in the Bay Area real estate once a month? Holiday greetings. There's generally a holiday every month. There's some months there's 2 holidays, and some months there aren't any holidays. But there's always a fun holiday. There was National Donut Day recently. I don't know why I was thinking about donuts. But there's, every month there's some silly national, Schnauzer Day, something, right? So we could send them a newsletter about what's going on in the real estate business. In addition to Market Leader having templates, who else would have stuff that they would give you and let you use in the newsletter? People that are friendly that you would meet just if you sat in the lobby long enough. That's it. Title companies, very good. Do title companies ever come by the office? Escrow, title reps? Don't they circle around like sharks, Isn't that right? If you sat in the lobby, eventually would somebody come up to you and introduce themselves, right? Do they have stuff that you could use? How about home warranties? Do they do home warranties in San Francisco? The home warranty companies have newsletter material that they'll let you use. Does the board of realtors put out stuff? The multiple listing service put out stuff, right? You understand? You just got to organize it. You should have weekly coffee dates with people, quarterly calls, and you should interact with people daily on social media. That doesn't mean you have to post stuff. You just have to share their garbage. Isn't that right?
On Facebook, most of these title companies, bankers, whatever, they already have their sites. In fact, they have stuff that you can move from their site to your site.
Right.
So it's readily available.
Yes, but Facebook is not about that, in my opinion. Right? It's not about that. Facebook is more about developing relationships with people. So there's 2 things about Facebook. One is if you made a list of everybody, do you understand you can create a custom friends list? Right, so real estate, it's possible for you to post something that only they see, and it's also possible to post things that they do not see. But let's say you had a list of people that were in your database that you think might refer business to you, and you click on that friends list and you can change the following so it comes up first, these people, the ones you care about, and then you look at their posts and you like, share, comment, like, share, comment, like, share, comment, like, share, comment, like, share, comment. By the way, the algorithm that Facebook is using picks up on this interaction and is more likely to show your posts to them and their posts to you if there's commenting going back and forth between you. So when you comment, ask a question. When they take a picture of their sushi, lunch, nobody cares about other people's lunch, but we all care about our own. Isn't that right? So you take a picture of your sushi lunch, ask them something, they respond, Facebook will raise their level of awareness between those two. So do you want, the bank in the donuts was sort of a tip, wasn't it? Would you like something else, another freebie?
Yes.
So Facebook, since it's his fault. Facebook. So Facebook has business pages, community pages, and personal profiles. Business pages you need if you're going to spend money on ads. If you're not going to spend money on ads, you don't need, and the chances are no one's ever going to see anything from your Facebook. Let's just see if it will log in. Don't want to log in as that guy for sure, but
Question, is it possible to create an organic business page and load it up with email addresses or people's names and solicit without paying a dime?
No.
To the business?
everything except for the not paying a dime part. So Facebook, how much money do you pay Facebook every month to have access to Facebook? Nothing. So how did Zuckerberg buy that big house in Palo Alto?
He sells advertising.
Advertising. So they'd have no incentive to allow people to see your business page organically.
I see other people solicit.
But that's not organic.
pay
They
for
boost it. All right. So if you would like to want to see a good Facebook page,
Business?
a good realtor's Facebook page, right? A good realtor's Facebook page. This is not lightning fast, but let's see. Come on. So, wow, it's really not lightning fast today. Let me just see if it needs a little encouragement. So, Facebook is like the cocktail social party. So you're invited to a cocktail party, a social event, and you show up with your business cards, name badge, and property flyers. And every time you see somebody having a conversation, you interrupt them and you say, hi, I'm in real estate. Who do you know that wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? Here's my card, take my card. Here's a flyer for a listing I have. Come. Do you understand what's going to happen? Pretty soon, you're not invited to any more parties, right? Because you're being annoying. So it's better to be a little more subtle. Now, some years ago, I was asked by a manager of Coldwell Banker to help him with social media marketing. And I gave him, he said, give me an example of somebody that I thought was doing a good job. And so I gave him an agent down in our area named Holly Barr. And Holly has a webpage called Willow Glen Charm. Willow Glen is a subdivision. It's an area of San Jose, a nice area. Here's Willow Glen Charm. And you're still going to see in a moment Holly's face. Originally, it was less about Holly, but she's doing very well in real estate right now. And so let's see. There's Holly. How you doing, Holly? Now, what I'm going to point out to you is that 81,173 people like her page. 81,000. How's that possible? Well, first of all, let's talk about content. Here's a yard sale. Here's a chat. Here's a video about Bella James is going to a new location, about the church and about decorations and some things. There's a Shamrock Run that's going to be coming up, and she's got stuff about that. Here's something about they're cleaning up the creek. One thing that may have already been obvious to you is the lack of real estate posts. Here's about a butterfly and a golf course. Here's whatever they're doing. You know, here's something else that they're about honeybees. Here's something is somebody about more about bees. Here's something about the college football team. Here, notice the lack of real estate posts. And if you click on these, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Up here, it says there's 21 more comments on whatever that post was. People are commenting, they're liking, and they're sharing. And yes, Holly spent money boosting this to get it going. When I was talking to this broker back in 2011, she had 1,200 likes, which, by the way, is phenomenally good for a real estate agent. Right? I know you have to have 20 likes to get a custom URL. And so I hear agents saying, I'll like your page if you like my page, because they're struggling to get 20 people to like their page. Apparently, they don't have that many people that owe money, right? But it's hard to get 20 people to like your page. 1,200, 81,000, right? You understand? And by the way, her business in Willow Glen, mostly listings, has gone up to where last year she had 18 listings in Willow Glen, and Willow Glen is not a cheap part of San Jose. Not cheap, right? She had 18 listings. So the thing, no, it's about being, most real estate agents create a business page. They post real estate stuff over and over and over again. And most people get tired and then they stop liking the page. So where are we now on this? I had some scripts coming up, annual touch. That's, I think, about where I was.
Question.
Yeah. Oops.
Is there a good poster political opinion, do you think?
Say that again.
How about the political opinion? Politics.
No.
Avoid it at all costs.
You should avoid it at all costs. I don't, whatever persuasion you are, there's a whole lot of people that aren't. Right? Now, in certain areas, we are more confident as to what the politics might be, just because, you know, of where we live. However, it's generally better to stay away from that, right? Even, you know, what are the things they used to tell you never to talk about, right? Politics, religion, must be something else. Now, family, well, you could, that's, so, you know, my example is let's say, and I was watching this, it was like a CSI, because some people complained that I used this example, so now I have to explain. Anyhow, it was about this group of people that were Wiccans. They were into witchcraft, right? And they had meetings, and there was a book apparently that they quoted from. By the way, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, just in case you're, you know, I'm just not. But my point is that you could create in your Facebook profile a group of friends that are your witch friends, right? And then when you're posting about we're going to meet in the clearing at 2 in the morning to, you know, burn the whatever you're going to do, you can post that in a way that only the other, you know, pagan witches get to see it, right? You understand? And the interaction only they see. So if you're a member of a political party and you do like to discuss that on Facebook, it's possible for you to do it in such a way that other people do not see it. It takes a little bit more effort, but it's possible to do it in a way that other people won't see it. You're generally not going to get much out of a Facebook business page unless you're willing to run ads. A community page, which actually has, now they see Holly goes around with her camera taking videos. When a restaurant opened, she asked if she could talk to the manager. She introduces herself. I have a community page for Willow Glen with 80,000 people. Would you like to make a little video about your new restaurant, what you specialize in, and I'll post it on my, what do you think they say? Yes. I'd love to do that, you know, and then she makes a little video. She goes around with, there's an accident, if something's happening, she takes pictures and posts about it. Most people, most agents, when they look at her page, this is what they end up saying to me, that looks like a lot of work. Right, oh, so you'd rather go door knocking for 3 hours a day. Really? You'd rather do that than play on Facebook? Is that what you're saying? Rather go cold call people, right? I don't know, right? But there are some agents that do very well on social media, but they're not just having a Facebook page, posting real estate stuff and trying to get their friends to like it, because they don't like it, right? Now, over 90%, 95, 98%, depending on which time I've looked at it, of the people that like a page never go back to it. How many pages have you liked on Facebook that you ever went back to look at the page? Huh? Can you ever remember going back and looking at a page? Most people do not, right? Because there's nothing there anyone wants to see, so they don't go back. So what Holly has done is created stuff that people want to look at, so they actually go to her page. Isn't that amazing, right? And she's selling a lot of homes. So Almost Famous. Personal branding, you should use your picture. It's true that it's still a person-to-person business. People are more likely to keep business cards with pictures on them. They're more likely to keep marketing with pictures on them. A slogan, a logo, be consistent. That would be nice. Have a story. Volunteering, wear your name badge, tag. Have a personal website. Come from contribution, which means how can you help somebody? Scripts, new to real estate, remind people you're in real estate, referral scripts, follow-up scripts,